على مصر مين يبعت سلامي في كلمتين يا هلا الله مشتاق لناسها الطيبين ودي ياما فيها مخلصين يا ما شاء الله وأصغر العلماء تقدر تقول ما تشاء الله ندعي لهم رب السماء وقولوا آمين إن شاء الله إن شاء الله 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 يا ربي الله الله ومن قلبي اتوضى كده من صلى الفجر ولفت مصر وحواليها الله 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 على الأصغر الله 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 أكبر من الدنيا كمان أكتر لو قلت وصفها أنا مش هنصفها وكفيها.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful, to Him we belong and to Him we shall return. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His infinite wisdom and in His infinite mercy to send peace and blessings upon our beloved Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us beneficial knowledge. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our sins. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy upon our parents and to remove the hardships from upon our brothers and sisters across the world. Last time we were discussing the definitions that Imam al-Juwayni is providing for the revelatory rulings, and we arrived at the definition for valid. So he says, وَالصَّحِيحُ, a valid act, مَا يَتَعَلَّقُ بِهِ النُّفُوذ, that which goes through, وَيُعْتَدُّ بِهِ, and that which is recognized. And we said that nufudh means to go through. For example, like we said, a credit card transaction, when you swipe and it goes through, that means what? It went through. Now, some ulama say that there is actually no difference between nufudh and al-i'tidad in this regard, that they're just synonyms. But some scholars say that actually there's a difference. Nufudh specifically deals with contracts. What does that mean? We have, generally speaking, when it comes to acts that we can do, we have contracts that we can do, person-to-person contracts, or we have ritual worships. When it comes to the ahkam al-taklifiyya, the rulings that we have to fulfill, we can either do contracts or we can do ritual worship. If I come and I say, Muhammad, I sell you this thing, and you say, qabilt, I accept, that is a contract. I said, here, I sell you this, you say, I accept. That is a valid contract. Alright? That is a contract that went through, meaning that we can act upon this contract. Now you purchase from me, I give this to you, etc. This is now yours, and so on. But can you describe a ritual worship as having gone through? No, because you don't know. You only know that you fulfilled the ritual worship as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told you to do it. Whether it went through or not, that's something that you don't know. So the scholars say that nufudh specifically deals with contracts, and i'tidad deals with both contracts and ritual worship. Is that clear? So I gave this example of a valid contract and a valid prayer. For example, is when you pray your salah with all of the arkan and all of the shurut and so on. You fulfilled your prayer as you were obligated to do so, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the Prophet ﷺ outlined how you should pray, you prayed it accordingly. So that is valid. What is invalid? He says now, وَالْبَاطِلُ. وَالْبَاطِلُ, invalid, مَا لَا يَتَعَلَّقُ بِهِ النُّفُوذ وَلَا يُعْتَدُّ بِهِ. It is something that does not go through and is not recognized. Right? So for example, if you pray Salat al-Dhuhr, just 3 raka'at, and you say salat and you move on, that is invalid. It's invalid, it's batil. Right? It's not accepted. So you have to repeat. Okay, clear? Simple? Alright. Now he moves on and he says, وَالْفِقْهُ أَخَصُّ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ. What is this well referring to, this atf of wal fiqhu? Remember we said al-fiqh, he defined al-fiqh. He defined al-fiqh technically. He said ma'rifatul ahkam al-shar'iyyah. Then he came and he says wal ahkam al-shar'iyyah sab'a. A, B, C, D, etc. Then he says wal wajib is this, wal mandub is that, wal mubah is that. And now he's coming back and he says wal fiqh akhassu min al-ilm. So after giving us all of these definitions, he says that fiqh is more specific than knowledge. Now, I want us to be able to picture what he's doing here. He's taking us through a very step-by-step, very nuanced approach. He's speaking to beginners. He wants to explain to us everything as it is. He's giving us fiqh, the definition. And then everything that's within the definition of fiqh, he's going to explain. And then he's going to tell us not only that, but you know what? Fiqh akhassu min al-ilm. Fiqh is more specific than knowledge. What is he going to do next? He's going to say, wal-ilm. Knowledge is, wal-ilmu ma'rifatul ma'lumi ala ma huwa bihi fil waqi'. He says that knowledge is perception of what is knowable. Knowledge is the perception of that which can be known, that which is knowable, something that can be known. He's describing to us everything in detail. So when he says al-fiqhu akhas min al-ilm, what does that mean? Fiqh is a specific thing. Fiqh in the shar'i sense, as we defined it earlier, is a very specific thing. Akhas min al-ilm, it is more specific than knowledge, because knowledge is a lot of things. Knowledge is knowledge of nahu, knowledge of the world. So many things fall under knowledge. It is the perception of things that can be known. Right? So if you have a big circle, that is knowledge, and then you have a small circle inside of knowledge, which is what? Fiqh. Is that clear? And knowledge is the perception of things that can be known in reality, not in imagination. Meaning things in this world that can be known. Things in an imagination that can never be known in this world are not considered knowledge. They are things in imagination. Unless that thing can actually come into this world, only at that point do you call it knowledge. Okay? Then he says, وَالْجَهْلُ تَصَوُّرُ الشَّيْءِ عَلَى خِلَافِ مَا هُوَ بِهِ فِي الْوَاقِعِ. So after explaining to us what knowledge was, he says, وَالْجَهْلُ, ignorance. Knowledge is this, ignorance is تَصَوُّرُ الشَّيْءِ عَلَى خِلَافِ مَا هُوَ بِهِ فِي الْوَاقِعِ. Ignorance is perception of something contrary to how it is in reality. The perception of something contrary to how it is in reality. What does this mean? The ulama say, some ulama, they say that ignorance is actually, there are two types of ignorance. There is simple ignorance, and then there is compounded ignorance, or compounded ignorance. What does that mean? Simple ignorance is that you simply do not know something. So I tell you, Muhammad, what is behind that door? You say, I don't know. I'm ignorant of what's behind that door. Compounded ignorance is to say, behind that door is a lion. And I actually believe that there's a lion behind that door. I'm not lying. I believe that there's a lion behind that door. But it's completely wrong. That is compounded ignorance. Not only are you ignorant of what is behind the door, but you are ignorant of the fact that you are ignorant. Is that clear? Clear? So, you actually came and you said, behind the door is something. You're not lying, but you're absolutely wrong. And you're ignorant of the fact that you're wrong. You believe that something's behind the door. So if we look at Imam al-Juwayni's definition, he says, تَصَوُّرُ الشَّيْءِ عَلَى خِلَافِ مَا هُوَ بِهِ فِي الْوَاقِعِ. Perceiving something contrary to how it actually is in reality. So he's actually giving us a definition for what? For the murakkab. Because I'm perceiving something contrary to how it is in reality. Excuse me? Murakkab means compounded. I said that ignorance is two types, simple and compounded. Simple, simply not knowing something. Compounded, ignorance of the fact that I'm ignorant. So a nice stanza, poetry that ulama bring in this regard. They say that قال حمار الحكيم يوما لو أنصف الدهر كنت أركب لأنني جاهل بسيط وصاحبي جاهل مركب. So a donkey one day says that, if things were really fair, then my Sayyid, who sits on top of me, who quote unquote thinks he's wise, would be walking and I would be riding. And why is he saying this? He says, because my ignorance is simple, but my owner's jahl is murakkab. Because I'm ignorant, and I'm simply ignorant, but he's ignorant of the fact that he's ignorant. Okay? Clear? Fine. Then he says, وَالْعِلْمُ الضَّرُورِيُّ مَا لَا يَقَعُ عَنْ نَظَرٍ وَاسْتِدْلَالٍ. So after giving us the definition of jahl, he comes back and now he's going to give us the categories of ilm. He says, al-ilmu are two types. You have ilmun daruri wa ilmun muktasab. Al-ilmu daruri is necessary knowledge. And he says that al-ilmu daruri ما لا يقع عن نظر واستدلال. It is knowledge that does not require reflection or deduction. It's just necessary. For example, 1 is less than 2. That's necessary. I don't need to think about it. I don't need to sit there and reflect and look for proofs and so on. No. It's necessary knowledge. That the father comes before the son, that's necessary knowledge. I see a son and I see a father. I necessarily know that the father came before the son. I don't have to sit there and think about it and reflect. If I touch something that is hard, I necessarily know that it's hard. I don't have to think about, no, it's hard, that's it. So the ulama say that, for example, ما يعرف بالحواس, things that are known with your senses, hearing, seeing, touching, smelling, tasting. These are all ways that you acquire necessary knowledge. Other ulama say that ilmun bit-tawatur, knowledge that comes to us bit-tawatur. Like for example, like the Quran. Some ulama say that the Quran is, or actually all ulama say that the Quran is necessary knowledge. What comes to you generation after generation in these vast amounts of people, this is also considered necessary knowledge. Alright, that's a little side thing, extra information, but for inshallah for benefit, yeah. And then he says, we said that al-ilm is either daruri, necessary, or al-ilmu al-muktasab, knowledge which is acquired. He says that al-ilmu al-muktasab, acquired knowledge, هو الموقوف على النظر والاستدلال. Acquired knowledge is knowledge that requires reflection and deduction. Okay? So, for example, to learn usul al-fiqh, like we're doing right now, it requires reflection and it requires deduction. Right? I don't necessarily know usul al-fiqh. I have to actually think and reflect and know and learn proofs and so on to learn a given matter. Ilmun muktasab. Okay? So هو الموقوف على النظر والاستدلال. Then he comes and he starts defining this definition. So you see, Imam al-Juwayni is taking you step by step. I'm going to define for you every single word. So he says, والموقوف على النظر الاستدلال والنظر. Now he's going to go, and والنظر هو الفكر في حال المنظور فيه. He says, النظر, reflection, is to think about the object of reflection. What does that mean? The object of reflection can be the world. So I reflect about this world. The object of reflection can be a book. So I reflect about the book. and I think about the book, and what is this book, and how did it come, and what is it about, and what is this paper? I'm reflecting. I'm looking into this book. هو النظر عمل هو حركة العقل حركة في العقل. I'm using my intellect to think and reflect about something. والاستدلال والنظر هو الفكر في حال المنظور فيه. It is to think about the object of reflection. والاستدلال, deduction, هو طلب الدليل. Deduction is the seeking of proof. As a side note, anytime you see alif, sin, ta before a word, that means طلب. استدلال, طلب الدليل. استسقاء, طلب alif, sin, ta, طلب الماء, الاستسقاء, water, or to be rain in the Shara'i sense. So anytime you see alif, sin, ta before a word, you know that is talab, that is a request. So huwa talabu dalil. It is the seeking of proof. Then he says, وَالدَّلِيلُ هُوَ الْمُرْشِدُ إِلَى الْمَطْلُوبِ. Dalil, proof, is what leads to that which is sought. Okay? So, for example, if I say, Muhammad says, door knocks, and Muhammad says, it's Zayd. I say, what is your proof? So you come and you say, okay, my guide, this is my proof, A, B, C, and D. My proof is that it's Zayd because Zayd, when he comes, he usually knocks twice, he goes, and when he comes, he usually coughs. So my dalil, all my proofs here are telling me that it's Zayd. Okay? What is your proof, for example, that you have to pray? Ayat in the Quran, aqimu salah, so on, right? That is dalil. So he told us that acquired knowledge is what comes to you through nazar and istidlal. He defined for you what nazar is, he defined what istidlal is, and then he defined what dalil is. Now he's saying wadhan. So after telling you what ilm was, right, ma'rifatul ma'lumi ala ma huwa, he says wadhan, the next category. Here I'm going to quickly pause and just explain explain for our sake the different types of perception, right? And pay attention. It's not complex. It just requires that you pay attention. When we come to perceive things in this world, there are different ways that we perceive things. We either perceive things jazman, meaning that with certainty. That means that something is ilm. If I come and I perceive something with certainty, then I know this thing bil ilm. This is ilm. This is what ulama consider to be ilm, knowledge. Right? Not knowledge in the general sense that we defined earlier, but al-ilm in this regard is what they consider to be certainty. Or I perceive something not with certainty, but with confidence. Meaning that I'm not 100% sure that a given matter is 100% that. No, I have confidence that it's this. For example, same example, Zayd knocks on the door, and you tell me, I'm not 100% sure, but I have confidence that it's Zayd. Okay? So that's, your perception in the first time was, no, it's definitely Zayd. Certainty. Next was, I have confidence. The third level is what? Is taraddud. Shak. I have doubt. It's either Zayd or Muhammad. I just don't know. Right? It's literally 50-50. Okay? The fourth level of perception, so we said that the levels of perception are 4. 1, certainty. 2, confidence. 3, doubt. 1, ilm. 2, dhan. 3, shak. 4 is wahm. Wahm means suspicion. I suspect that it's Zayd. Right? But it's definitely not at the level of shak, because shak is stronger. And it's definitely not at the level of what? Dhan, confidence. Because dhan is confident, dhan is stronger than shak. And clearly, it's not at the level of certainty, ilm. These are the four general ways that people perceive things in this world. So, we said that وَالظَّنُّ he says وَالظَّنُّ تَجْوِيزُ أَمْرَيْنِ أَحَدُهُمَا أَظْهَرُ مِنَ الْآخَرِ. What does that mean? الظَّنُّ is when confidence is when confidence is to deem each of two matters possible with one predominant over the other. So two things are possible, but one is clearly more predominant over the other. That is dhan. والشك الشك تجويز أمرين لا مزية لأحدهما على الآخر. Doubt is to deem two matters possible without the predominance of one over the other. So two things are possible, but they're 50-50. So either Zayd at the door or Amr at the door. It's 50-50, I don't know. Okay? So this is basically the introduction that Imam al-Juwayni gives us into ilm usul al-fiqh. He goes through a bunch of definitions, and I know it was a little bit tedious but it's important that if we collectively understand these simple definitions, this will take us a long way as we continue to learn the different sciences, especially in usul al-fiqh. We know what dhan is, we know what shak is, we know what ilm is, we know what nazar is, we know all these various definitions that he offered us. And inshallah, next time, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, we will continue from where we left off. وصلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله.
يا ربي الله الله ومن قلبي علي توضى كده مني هان صلى الفجر ولف مصر وحوالينا الله الله على الأصغر الله 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 أكبر أم الدنيا